rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers J.D. Weatherspoon and Courtney Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
Hello. Good evening, children of Earth, lions, cats, chickens, dogs, children, adults, and everybody in between. So, I'm sure you're wondering why it is just me and not a split screen with myself and the bald one. So, what happened was Courtney was abducted by aliens somewhere in Jamaica, which also translates to Digicel is doing what Digicel does. So, what that means is I get the pleasure of driving this episode solo, but it's fine because I'll be alongside two individuals who are objectively more competent than I am. Their names are Charlotte James and Undrea Wright, and they represent the Ancestor Project. So before we get into that, let me make sure I, number one, give a moment of silence for Courtney and his broadband internet connection. Pause. Prayer hands. Bet. And beyond that, let's walk these dogs and do what we normally do on every DMA podcast. So, as is always, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share this episode with someone that you love. And it would be even better if you shared it with someone that you actually can't stand right now and turn them into a loved one, because that's what our transmissions do. We are magical people. Shouting out all of you who decided to pop in early, as you do so well. Candy Paint, Sequoia, and of course, this guy who's going to be typing in patois for the entire duration of this episode because he's in Jamaica and he's trying to flex on us. Anyways, Candace, Sequoia, again, just because I love y'all that much. Nevertheless, let's get to what we came to do. This is episode 12 of DMA Season 2. For the uninitiated, DMA means Divine Masculine Activated. And for those who are initiated, you know this is the last go-round for this season. So how appropriate that our tech issues would be such that this medium-colored Negro is not on our transmission this episode, right? I guess we saved the best for last. Anyways, what is DMA and why should you care? DMA is, for us, the ability to activate masculine energy without sacrificing your feminine energy, as seen below. Also, let me take that off. Our personal why in this, right? Like, why do we do this? And that is because our nurturing as men has taught us that anything feminine is reserved for women, and masculinity is about being hard, forceful, and choosing logic over empathy. So we created Divine Masculine Activated to unpack what we have been taught and reshape how we think about femininity, because to be honest, while they are both whole, they both kind of need each other. And by kind of, I mean they really need each other, whether we like it or not. So this is where it benefits you. This week's episode is exploring the dynamics of masculine and feminine energy through the lens of plant-based medicine with the founders of the Ancestor Project. Charlotte and Undrea, sorry, I wanted to make sure I didn't ruin that, built the Ancestor Project as a way to integrate ancestral sacred earth medicine wisdom and a modern healing experience. Another way of making healthcare and wellness more holistic, right? Their work is designed to reduce harm and expand consciousness. And so through their combination of online and in-person opportunities, the Ancestor Project facilitates learning that supports radical self-transformation in the name of collective liberation. think back to our last episode. Well, no, I'd say about 2 episodes ago when we referred to liberation versus, I want to say, like, fortification, but you can go check that out on our YouTube channel. So please help us welcome both Charlotte James and Undrea Wright.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, you made it.
Just been chilling in that super swanky green room y'all prepared for us. Thank you.
Yeah, did you enjoy the cucumber sandwiches with the just cut off?
It was my
Yes.
Okay. And the butlers were all cool, right? Like they didn't.
And the cannabis was fantastic. Thank you.
Like, the cannabis is always fantastic.
I like the green room with no alcohol.
I'm on dieta, so let's not talk about cannabis.
So, yeah, you're on a dieta. Sorry about
that. Rocking my CBD over here, loving it.
That is so responsible, and it looks good on you. So yeah, like let's get into this. So we actually started digging into this part of the iceberg a bit in the green room, as we typically do. The episode starts way before the episode starts. And I think the way that we met was like so serendipitous that it would definitely benefit the audience to go into the experience that we were all, submitting ourselves to when we crossed each other's paths. Who wants to start first? Because I can talk all that.
Are we talking about submitting ourselves to this experience of life?
Also, yes, but I was referring to the Sweat Lodge.
Oh my God, I totally forgot that was the first connection. Thank you. I forgot about that.
No, that's fine. Listen, it's been a busy like 9 to 10 months. So.
Well, also because there's other connections.
Yeah.
Like Courtney knows our medicine family, Gabby. I'm good friends with Chantrell, who was on your show a few weeks back. So I was like, there's so many intersections that I couldn't remember what the origin point was.
Yeah.
Funny how that all comes together, right?
Yeah.
That was a beautiful lodge. We built the Moon Lodge, and it was really good to see you up there. The effort that everybody put into the lodges. I remember that morning I got up early and went out in the woods and played the flute and did high pay. It was just beautiful. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Well, I say like let's paint a bit more color on this canvas, right? Like obviously there's a certain level of initiation that we've undergone, but for those who are henceforth uninitiated for the time being, what is the Sweat Lodge, and what is the purpose of it, and what did y'all two walk away with?
Purification. Yeah, purification. Sweat Lodge is Nipi. And then the lodge we partook in was a Lakota style lodge. So there's a hole in the ground, and that hole on the ground represents the center of the universe. On the outside of that all the dirt that is dug in that hole becomes a mound on the outside. And that represents the divine masculine, actually the fire is the divine masculine. The mound is neutrality. And then the universe, that hole is where the universe sits. And then all those ribs represent like the constellations. It's a really beautiful process. And then there's it's positioned using the cardinal directions. There's tarps or skins that are put over, and then grandfathers of our oldest ancestors. The grandfathers are heated, and then the rocks, right? These are rocks. They're typically river rocks, and they're heated, put in the mound, and then you use cedar, sweetgrass, sometimes lavender or sage, on those rocks, and the rocks speak to us, and we pray. We pray we do usually 4 rounds. I think in this lodge we did a bear round, right? Was the last round. The first round was for one round was for our ancestors. I can't remember what we did in the other 2 rounds, but we essentially pray and sing and sweat. It's uncomfortable.
We did sweat quite a bit.
Yeah.
Listen, our lodge was cold.
I know you're loud.
Listen.
Because that was my first sweat lodge, and I was so, I know that I get uncomfortable in heat. I avoid saunas. If we look at like across the world, there are so many traditions that work with heat and sweating as a form of purification. So I was like, all like, oh God, I really have to like prepare myself, because it's also this beautiful ritual of rebirth, right? Like you're going into this really dark space and you sweat and you purify yourself and you come out the other side. Literally, you walk in one side, you come around the circle, you come out the other side. So it's this representation of the womb of the earth and being reborn. I was freezing. It was so cold in the women's lodge because we built such a beautiful, huge lodge.
It was too big.
It was too big that I was like, crawled in and tried to get like as far from the center hole as possible, and then was like, oh, I need to move way closer because it's cold in here now.
Yeah, that's also
Look, y'all should have stacked more stones. I'm just saying, the rocks were on top of that fire for like 4 hours straight. So
yeah,
like,
they really were, when they were like popping and breaking.
Yeah, and
they cracked.
Our lodge was stuffed. We had a lot of men in that lodge. It was smaller than yours, and we were like all and uncomfortable. You had to get down like this, but all that discomfort.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Part of our learning, right? Part of our understanding.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool that so to provide a bit more color before we move on. So this sweat lodge, as it was mentioned, used heat as a form of purification, and the purpose of the inipe is to symbolize not only the womb, but also to symbolize the hibernation of the bear, as we did this in like late fall going into winter, around the time when bears start to hibernate. Bear energy, especially among Lakota tradition, is said to represent healing, wisdom, and also just like that deep wisdom that comes from the shutting off and the shutting on, which was represented by the hibernation. So long and short, my favorite piece of the experience as it relates to this series specifically is the fact that the men and women were on both sides. And the men were responsible for constructing the inipes for the women, and the women were responsible for constructing the inipe for the men. And they both had to do it by hand, by bending saplings and tying them together. And so all of that led to a great opportunity to bond and connect. And I think that's sort of the perfect theme that the Ancestor Project itself represents. And so using that segue, I want to go into the beginning. Like, where did exploring plant medicine start and what made it stick? And I would love it if both of you could give your own individual answers.
You want to go first, Roy?
Yeah, sure. So we were talking about this in the green room as well, that if I trace the breadcrumbs of life back in this current lifetime, I've always been on this path for a very long time, unknowingly. So my first relationship with a plant medicine was cannabis. Certainly,
usually how it starts is those gateway drugs.
The gateway medicine. But the gateway for me into myself, really. And so, I was introduced to cannabis in a recreational way, though quickly developed sort of a deep solo relationship with the medicine that helped me survive high school and college and stay a little bit truer to myself than maybe would have been possible otherwise. When I was in college, at that point, I was really open to the idea of, I've never really had an issue with experimentation or being curious, being a seeker. So when other things came across the table, I was always down to sort of answer that call. Had some early experiences with MDMA and LSD, and then a few
DMA or DMT?
MDMA.
Oh,
Molly.
MDMA. Sorry, I was gonna say, wow, you summoned us like that. You just knew way back in the day that DMA was gonna be a thing. That's crazy.
Just astral projected real early. No, MDMA and LSD. Again, in a more recreational setting, but always communal. like if I look back, all of my experiences happened in communities, whether it was in a burner community. I lived in Bolivia after I graduated college, where we did a lot of exploration. And then a few years back, I decided that I really need to put myself in therapy. I was in a super shitty relationship. Well, actually, it's a relationship where I learned a deep amount about myself. So
Made to catch that. Mr. Tony told us that fuckboys are tools of enlightenment, so we can't shit on those bad relationships, the bad ones, because they were opportunities to learn what we are not, so that we can get closer to what we are. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. So that person very much needed to be in therapy, but was not willing to go. So I was like, I'm gonna put myself in therapy. And within the same year, also had my first experience with sacred teachers, which is also known as mushrooms. And then then it just tumbled. Like, I was in a co-working space. Someone came in with combo marks, which I had seen on National Geographic in high school. Yeah. I made flippant comment that they probably went to a white shaman, and they were like, no, it's this guy Dre. And then Dre and I met, and then and then Dre and I met, and did we go to the conference first and then I sat in ceremony, or I sat in ceremony and then we went to this conference together around people of color and psychedelics?
It don't really happen fast.
It happened so fast. It was literally 3 months that all these things happened, and we were like, oh, there's a huge need in our community. Also, I was hyped. To the People of Color and Psychedelics Collective, put on this conference in DC in 2019. We went to that and just kept having these conversations and realized that we could bring our superpowers together and start to fill this gap or answer this need within our community. I also was just hyped to have another Black person that had done psychedelics.
It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that, because that's part of how our conversation
oh, you on that crazy white people shit. And I was like, I'm not. I don't think I am. I think this is stuff for us, but okay.
It's also crazy Black and brown people shit. Yes.
And ancestral. I say this sometimes, we not new to this, we true to this. When you start to really trace these roots back, it goes to our communities a lot of the time. So
these indigenous practices are real.
Exactly.
Agreed. When two touch and agree. I did say he would be live and active in these chats, and so far he's living true to form.
Listen, apparently there's enough broadband for it's funny, I was supposed to have a conversation with someone in Jamaica today, and they were like, my DSL line is out in the mountains and I can't. So there must be something happening in Jamaica today.
There's never really not something happening in Jamaica. It's just what it
exactly.
Yeah. All right, so Dre, you're up. Where did exploring plant medicine start, and what made it stick for you?
So let's see. I was 40 years old. Oh, I'm ex-military. So I had done the whole alpha male thing, been in this special operations unit, and I experienced this whole warrior persona. But I was 40 years old and about to have a kid, and I was a real miserable person. I worked 80 hours a week. I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I would do background checks before people came to my house, right? Very super aggressive. And I was about to have a child at 40. And so I said, look, I need to consider the 3 things that I decided when I was 13 that were important to me. Be enlightened, to be a fantastic father and a good husband. But I can't do that if I'm angry, right? I can't be in love with others if I'm not in love with myself. So I said, I gotta do something different. So I was also one of these just say no to drugs. I grew up on Long Island, been brainwashed.
Captain Buzzkill.
Yeah. I was let's say yes. Who's gonna offer them to me first? Because I'm ready to say yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. So my 40th birthday, I had pop brownies, and it blew my mind. I was within a couple of minutes, 90 minutes, I had no pain, and I also felt connected, in touch with people and everything. And I felt in love, for the first time in a long time. And, I take tons of medications in the military. They give you all kinds of drugs and nothing like this. And so I then about a month later had mushrooms. And back then it was in a chocolate that looked like a doggy biscuit, because they were trying to hide it, because they were afraid that if we sent it in the mail that we might get captured by the law. Like, it was really funny, like how naive, I was at the time, and how afraid of all this shit I was.
Yeah.
So I do these mushrooms, and I had my mom and my partner watch me while I sat in the hammock, and it was amazing. Like, I just laughed the whole time, and I kept saying, "Let it go." I forgave my father for not being, in my life and being a support in my life. And then I saw this image of this beautiful green goddess, and she said, "You have to see Grandma." So after the ceremony was over, or just like at the time, I didn't see it as a ceremony. I was just taking mushrooms. I told my partner, and then she told about Grandma and all this. And so the next day she was at school. She was a teacher, professor, and she taught. One of her students was asking her for her advice because she wanted to be a curandera. And she said, "Yeah, I'm working with this medicine called Grandma." She said, "Grandma." And next thing you know, a week later, I'm in my first ayahuasca ceremony. And it was the most challenging 4 hours. The first 4 hours were really challenging because my ego was so huge. I was like, I had all these stories about, I'm not going to purge.
That's fine. It won't be that big by the time she's done.
Right. I didn't want to purge. I thought people who purge were weak. Like, all these ideas.
Oh, you chose the hard adventure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
He's like, turn to page 80 for the most treacherous.
Yeah, you went that way in the Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure book.
Yeah,
you went down the dark, creepy hallway with the bleeding walls.
Yes.
I feel you.
Yeah, it was profound. But when I was so exhausted that I couldn't resist anymore, I like laid my head down on the ground. I was like, I just want to die. And I heard someone in the distance purge, and I like said a prayer for them, like, "You're gonna be okay." And from that moment on, stop feeling sorry for myself and that compassion I have for this other person. Like, my world exploded. Like, then it was like, for the next 12 hours, every question I've ever asked in the universe, I had a rebirth experience. My first ceremony, I was
crazy how that works, right?
I was like, good. This was like amazing. Like, I was like, for the next 12
light bulb after light bulb after light bulb.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, and then a month later, I was in Peru doing my first dieta and practicing and apprenticing, and I've been doing it ever since. Like, this has been, now I was in the cannabis industry for 10 years. I helped to get the law passed in Maryland. We got a decriminalization medical bill passed in Maryland, so I was in the industry. But
thank you for your service.
Yeah, well, I would say thank you, but me being in the cannabis industry is a lot like me being in the military, right? Both of these structures are problematic and super abusive, right? The fact that we still, handle our problems by murdering other people in other countries is kind of ridiculous, right? We have to stop this kind of craziness. And by the way, most of those people that we're killing are people of color, right? So, and we're doing this for a country that has traumatized us from inception, right, of our relationship with them. So it's kind of fucked up. But also, the cannabis industry is really about getting stoned, right, and not really about getting well. And cannabis
is not about healing,
right? And there's no connection to the plant, right? There's no relationship. It's about, what can this thing do for me, right? And then people of color also are people who were criminalized for this medicine. So very similar, But now we're here in with these psychedelics, and the reason why it stuck is because I saw clear evidence. I saw myself how all of the judgments and stories I had, all those constructs that I had, were just falling apart and melting away, and me choosing to become whatever I wanted to be, which is a person who's in love with himself and everybody else. So now, instead of doing a background check, I give you a hug and hey, what's going on? Let's get together.
Yeah,
So
no, you were definitely hardcore on the hugging, which I appreciate. And that actually takes me back to what I referenced before with the liberation and the expansion. Back when we were doing our episode with Crystal, the tantric yogi goddess herself, like how you need that combination of liberation and expansion to get to
right.
like bliss, which ideally leads one to their own version of harmony, right? And so I know y'all do a lot of work with microdosing, particularly as it relates to like y'all's belief that it can dismantle oppression, which I really love. If y'all could, for the folks in the back, break down what microdosing is and how specifically y'all believe it can dismantle oppression. Because I like this premise. Let's follow this thread.
You want to tag team? You want to start off?
Yeah.
Tag team ain't no fun unless we all get some. Like, let's get into this.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I saw that in the topics. I mean,
do your thing.
Don't. I would actually say that microdosing is a super supportive tool.
Yes.
After you have had an initiatory journey, like when I think back to my experience, microdosing really wouldn't mean much to me if I had not already had that big expansion, like understanding what it means to feel limitless,
right?
What it feels to be outside of this realm, in the spirit realm, in a place where there's no pressure. I think microdosing, we saw a lot of folks starting to talk about and still talking about microdosing like it's a magic pill.
Yeah, like it's a fad in the same way.
It's a hot thing, right? And it's really accessible for people. Like a lot of people don't want to be in a journey for 12 hours. A lot of people don't want to get burned and throw up in a bucket. We get that, there's going to be different entry points to this. However, if what you're really looking for is like truly to dismantle, to decolonize yourself, to dismantle your internalized oppression, to, break these constructs that Dre was talking about, I would say the other medicines we work with, so like combo is incredibly powerful for starting that journey. And then doing like the deep dives, doing those safely, doing ceremonial doses in a ceremonial setting, or supporting yourself in building a relationship with this medicine by slowly building up your own ritual practice on your own. So with things like psilocybin, things like ayahuasca, iboga, just to like set the record straight, definitely need a facilitator. But
no, can we just please get a facilitator? This is not what you want to partake in your friend's living room.
Yeah,
in Williamsburg on a Saturday night.
Come down to my warehouse, just show up, pay me $300 and sit in ceremony, run the other way on that one. But yeah, I think microdosing is like a very accessible conversation for a lot of people. And it, for me, is a really powerful integration tool and helps me like give a little bit more, remember that space for the pause, so that you can respond to life instead of reacting to it.
Yes, right. I like that. Say it again. Respond versus react.
That's amazing because you just looped that back to episode number 1.
Right.
We specifically, talked about how, like, with your sympathetic versus your parasympathetic nervous system, a reaction comes from the parasympathetic. Like, it is a gut reaction. It's mostly run off of adrenaline. It's like fight or flight. Versus a response, which comes from the sympathetic one, which, that's your frontal cortex. You've processed this. You've decided how you're going to go about it. And those differences in energy can dictate whatever happens after that, because it can turn into a chaotic event, or it can turn into, at least, well-controlled chaotic event. But either way, we have far more power than we realize once, ironically enough, we decide to submit whatever process that we currently engage with. But that's a bit deeper down a rabbit hole. Dre.
Yes.
Finish up with this alley-oop on dismantling oppression and how that applied to your journey specifically.
Sure.
Right. And also, I just had some fire edible. I hadn't smoked in like a couple of days, so just
I can see it in your.
ask me that question again.
Lastly,
Yeah, say what? Ask me the question again.
microdosing to dismantle oppression. I'm
No,
just
yeah,
just
so
out anything I
yeah,
didn't say.
so neuroplasticity.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. With an equal amount of lion's mane and
niacin.
200 milligrams of niacin. After 6 weeks, they find neuroplasticity increase 138%. So there you go. That's the science behind it. However, yeah, I think ultimately it's not about just what the medicine can do for you. It's really about building a relationship with the sacred medicine, right? And with gentleness and respect and consent. So do the dose. Now, Baba Kalindi would say the dose is not 5 to 7 grams. He would say something like 30. I've never done 30 grams, but at 14 grams, I can tell you, peeing on yourself.
I was about to say 30 grams, you are a savage.
Yeah. He used to do it.
That was his regular 30 to 50.
Yeah, he would do 30 to 50. He has this huge crystal ball in his basement.
I bet he does. He probably sees things in it by the time he's done with 30 grams.
He's since passed. He's since passed, but he was really the father in our community about teaching how this is also these mushrooms were in Africa, right? And our ancestors did these medicines. We did a really beautiful. Charlotte, you're going to take over because you took over this part of the conversation. But we just had a beautiful conversation with Darren LeBaron about sacred mushrooms in Africa, and he went it was like 9 hours of content.
Yeah, it's literally like 6 weeks of 6 hours of 6+ hours of content.
It was heavy, but
so.
Yeah, so microdosing I think has some benefits, but I think we should get away from. We should be suspect of all of the narratives that the privileged are pushing, and to include this kind of conversation, right? How about let's get in ceremony in a sacred relationship with these medicines. If you are someone who's looking to heal, yes, it does have the potential of supporting you in your healing process too, for sure. But let's get acquainted first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw this question down here. This is really cool how it pops up. These questions on the bottom around microdosing as grief support. And I will say that the medicine always brings you what you need, not necessarily what you want. Right. And so frequently what folks will find with microdosing is that it amplifies latent emotions, like maybe things that you haven't been focusing on so much. So there's a lot of conversation about it helps with energy, creativity, neuroplasticity, focus. There are conversations around microdosing as a support for ADHD and ADD, right? And also, we've definitely seen folks who microdose for those intentions and then are just like, every day that they microdose are like very emotional because they have this stuff that they're trying to like not focus on, and
that's not how it works.
To that, that's how it works. So
you're gonna get what you need. You're not gonna get what you opine about or what you think you want.
Yeah. And it's definitely about letting go of expectation and just focusing on your intention.
Yeah. Yep.
And being open to whatever may come.
But it's always what you need.
Yeah. But I think, I do think that like medicine for supporting grief, though, because it completely flips your understanding of death. So I think when you have a different understanding of death, really just a transition, it changes your relationship to grief as well. So again, I would say do the dose on that one.
Let me ask you this question. What would be, outside of having a psychosis, what would be a reason that you wouldn't encourage someone to support themselves with psychedelics? It's good for your body, mind, soul, your environment, your community, everything. If done with setting the right intention, this is all for your benefit, your growth and your evolution. There's always a proper time to connect and commune with these medicines for sacredness. Yeah, for sure. Do your work. I'm sure this my spiritual session experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's not every time, right?
Mm.
But you know, when it happens, it's great.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
no.
funny.
Well,
Oh,
I wanted to, before we continue, just for the sake of the interaction, because I can see we can rabbit hole about this ad
I
infinitum.
know.
I'm curious about the audience specifically. Like, I know Karaya just dropped her take on her experience with plant-based medicines, but for all who are currently viewing, it would be great to get your take on your experience with it and what your experience was like.
mm-hmm.
I would allow for a lag. It takes a minute for those comments to populate. So while we're waiting on those, I want to pivot to y'all's take on wellness and how it requires a holonic approach, because I liked where y'all were headed with that.
Okay.
Number
Right.
one, WTF is a holonic, and how can I get one? Do they have it at Amazon?
Yeah.
You
And
can
then
get a
also,
book at Amazon that will
Yes.
you
Yeah, she's
about
prepared.
hold-ons.
Yeah, she's prepared. I like it. Thank you.
This is my computer stand when I'm in my altar room.
So typically, when we think of hierarchies,
It's a thick
we
one.
think of we're accustomed to think of this negative perspective, like some person on top and in control of us, right? And that person on the top has all the power. That's a toxic, unhealthy hierarchy. But the truth is, in nature, hierarchy is natural. So each cell, you have 70 trillion cells, that each one of those cells make up your body. They're all whole individuals, all working in concert to support you, your being, your flesh suit this time around. So we connect with this idea when you are thinking about your wellness as a being, when you're doing the inventory, you take a holonic approach, not a holistic, but a holonic approach, and looking at everything from your cellular, right, to your spiritual, from your energy level to your physical, mental. You look at your community. You want to also consider your environment that you're in terms of what is nourishing and supportive for you, that being.
Yeah. So the term holonic or holon comes from this book, Sex Ecology and Spirituality by Ken Wilber. She thick.
hey,
Seriously, it's a good book. Ken Wilber.
It is really good. It is really good. It's also the kind of book that you read like 10 pages at a time because you have to look up 12 new theories every time you open it. But yeah, he talks about this idea of what's the other concept he talks about, Dre? Like depth versus
span versus depth.
Span
So
versus
this idea that arguably the human being is the most complicated expression of carbon. Everything in this universe is carbon. So the things that we know of, that the human being is the most sophisticated expression of that, right? So, but there are far many carbon atoms as there are human beings, right? And also, if human beings disappear from the planet, no harm, no foul. But if carbon disappeared,
well, everything's gone.
Right, exactly. So this idea that just that, you know, this hierarchy, that it's span versus depth is the things we need to keep. As things become more complicated, there's less of those things.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But what does all that have to do with?
Yeah, right. We're like just talking about hold-ons.
Because what we encourage people to do is look at your body, mind, spirit, your community, and your environment. When you're assessing yourself, when you're doing your inventory of yourself, which is essentially preparing yourself for ceremony, right? You're spending some time in fasting and really considering, who am I in all these different aspects of me? And then you create an intention around it as you've done that analysis of yourself, no one else, nobody else's judgment but yourself, with gentleness and respect. And then you go to ceremony, you set an intention, right? And you have this new awareness about, these are the behaviors that I do to contribute to my suffering.
Say that one more time. Run that back. That last statement.
Okay. Ooh.
These are the behaviors that what?
You're like, I don't know what I said. These are the behaviors.
So these are the behaviors. These are the behaviors. These are the behaviors, the mannerisms, the habits. That's a better word. The habits, beliefs, and ideas that cause my suffering, right? My suffering now as a human adult that is in control of my being, right? Yeah. Now, no, I'm definitely not saying that there are not things outside of those. They're not exterior.
Absolutely.
But really, what most of us are reacting to, the trauma we're reacting to, is something that happened in the past, with the exception of structural racism, right? And white supremacy, which is why our conversation is a little unique. But the majority of people are coming to psychotherapy or coming to for some trauma that one once had, and then relive that trauma over and over again. Our bodies habituate very quickly on a cellular level.
And the body always keeps score. Our cellular memory
absolutely,
is
absolutely.
Another great book.
Right. Absolutely. So
it's a very good book.
Anger is your thing. If anger is your thing, at some point you become addicted to this feeling of anger, right? And you practice that habit enough and you become an angry person. The good news is that these medicines, these sacred plant medicines, give us the opportunity. So on the cellular level, where those receptor sites are looking for that chemical signal of anger. Oh, anger. Oh, wait, you're not angry.
You know what to do with this.
Right, exactly. That's why when you make your New Year's resolution, for 2 days, you're doing great. And then the body says, wait a minute.
We need that fix.
We need that fix. And then you have those angry thoughts. The angry thoughts create more chemicals. So the thinking and feeling, you become the angry person all over again, right? But psychedelics, these medicines, sacred plant medicines, what they do is they give you the opportunity to shake it all up, all those dendrites, and make it so that you can choose to train the railroad tracks of your experience. You don't forget about the trauma, but you're no longer emotionally attached to it, right? Because your connection, what you attract, is really based on what your true self, the name that you chose before your parents were born, desires, right? That's the intention, the antenna, and then the emotions that you have. That's like the rocket fuel to get you where you want to go, right? But if your rocket fuel is like, I'm no good, I don't deserve love, I'm not good enough, I'm afraid, right? To be a man is to be angry and aggressive, right? Right? Instead of loving, compassionate, and caring, right? Then that becomes like your addiction. But these medicines give us the ability to get back in touch with our true selves before colonization, before they stripped us of our humanity and made us, get into this toxic, patriarchal killing and destroying everything mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think all of that. That was give a moment of silence just for that to.
Sorry.
Yeah, let it breathe. Let it sip some water.
Thank you.
You're just gonna flex on us with the 2-liter jar. Okay, see, now you know what? You can get off my stream. What you're not gonna do is have a big water bottle with me. That's not allowed.
Oh, he has the gallon bottle with the strap so you can wear it around.
Hydrate yourself.
I feel like this circles very nicely into a conversation about holonic integration.
Yeah, so I got a new practice. Can I share my new practice?
Yeah.
It's called RMP, RMP. I just learned this, right? So rise.
Oh.
RIM.
RPM. Rise.
RPM. All right. Rise, P, and meditate. Isn't that awesome? I just learned that today. So rise in the morning, right? Soon as you rise, soon as you're aware, go pee, and then get totally connected with that stream of love and consciousness about yourself. And if you sit at your altar and worship yourself, what a fantastic way to start your day. Oh my God. I also drink a large glass of water. It's a good way to start your day in a beautiful way. Simple.
And it's a good way to come back to your journey space without the medicine. I think this conversation on holonic integration or just a conversation on integration is like how you take the insights that the medicine brings you and then embody that in your day-to-day life. And like how you take those downloads and turn them into actions so that you can actually begin to shift your reality. And we talk about holonic integration because So frequently folks will talk about the triumvirate of mind, body, spirit. But
yes,
then
the triumvirate, your $3 word. Come
they
on now.
don't go like the external, the next step, which is community and environment. So frequently what we see in the psychedelic space is that people are like, I healed my trauma. I'm transformed. I'm a spiritual
new person.
being. I'm a new person. And then they like go replicate the same system.
Like a week later.
That both oppress them and continue to oppress other people. And so this idea of taking it outside of yourself as well and saying, okay, I have experienced this radical self-transformation. I understand my purpose. I understand that I'm a being of love, that I'm creative energy, and like taking that to then impact the collective life, the liberation of all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's
this is the way they work.
Exactly. They lived an integrated life. And that's, of course, very different for us as modern journeyers, right? Like, we don't live next door to our shaman. We are not in ceremonies every week necessarily. It depends who you are, right? The point is to get to a place of living your life in ceremony, but still, that looks different when you live in a concrete jungle than when you live like...
And when you live in Putumayo and you're in the Amazon, right?
Right.
Which is... That's a perfect segue, because I know, like, as I continue on my journey, I have infrequent moments of the dual consciousness, and occasionally, like, there is that cognitive dissonance, because, like, this type of purpose-driven work, it requires its own brand of education, focus, and empathy. And so sometimes it's tricky reconciling the spiritual focus of the work while reconciling the fact that as we exist right now, we operate within a capitalist structure. Like, how do y'all balance that out?
That's a good question. We have a couple different ways that we've built accessibility into our offerings, our business. So we do something called justice pricing. So all of our offerings, all of our educational offerings come on a tier. And there's a community rate, there's a sustainer rate, or a supporter rate, and a sustainer rate. And typically the sustainer rate is twice the community rate. And that essentially means that we're able to give scholarships if we need. We also have a mutual ceremony fund that people can apply for BIPOC folks to apply to. Because finances should not ever be a barrier to healing or accessing medicine. And so we have this mutual ceremony fund that folks are able to contribute to. We redistribute those funds. And then we do the same thing with our own ceremonies. We tier out the pricing. And I think, like, we try to have a range of offerings as well, right? So somebody said earlier about surrender, and then somebody else said they had medicine in hand, but were like waiting for the right moment. We have a whole interactive guide that you can download that will take you on your own self-guided ceremony. It has a prayer and meditation and a playlist, right? And that's like an offering that is $45 versus, like, you know, coming to a whole ceremony or coming to a live series that might like be a little bit higher in price. So yeah, we do that justice pricing. We don't turn anyone away ever.
Truth.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Wow. So we've traveled quite a bit of ground with this. Like, it's all right. So it's like we have maybe enough for like one more talking point ish. And I guess, like, looping it all back, I know y'all have touched on it, but to make it really real and put it on Front Street, for y'all's approach, and I think encapsulating everything that the Ancestor Project represents for y'all both specifically, like, how do these masculine and feminine polarities come into play from y'all perspective as like facilitators and conduits? And then furthermore, what is y'all's ideal goal as a takeaway for those who submit themselves to, you know, y'all's leadership?
collective liberation, right? This is essentially the key to our freedom, like real freedom, but for not just people of color, for all humans, not just for men and women or theys, but for all of us, right? Our species is to get right with this planet and get right with ourselves, to radically fall in love with ourselves, and then with everyone else, right?
I like that.
Yeah, it's hard to be a judger of others when you have no more judgments for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
True.
No. Right.
True.
And also, while we're doing all that, those hugs and kisses, people of color, we have to free ourselves from this oppression. It's not gonna happen any other way. And the methods that we've been using haven't really been that effective. So let's try something different. Let's get back. Let's get connected to like our ancestral power, right? And change this experience, change the perspective, shift the consciousness now.
Yeah.
Because I got a daughter. She's sitting right back here. She's sitting. She's sleeping. She's okay.
Yeah, listen, Big Daddy energy is real. Toby Nwigwe has shown us all the way. Like if the babies can't pull up,
Little Lib, she was like, "I'm over this. I'm taking."
She's out cold. So I just picked her up. But anyway, so when she's 11, right? I've been having conversations about social racism and this permissive rape culture that we live in, right?
No, I'm sorry, Drake. Can you lean the other side? The window is mirrored. There we go. I want people to see all of your beautiful face. I didn't want them to keep seeing.
Okay, there you go. Boom. And just the overall trauma that humans unnecessarily experience. Let's like have a lavish life someplace, living on islands. This is just ridiculous. We got to change this now, right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Have you seen that meme that goes around that's like, we could have done anything in the world and we really chose credit scores and capitalism?
Yeah, we just own this rock paying bills.
Yeah.
Like, what, the only ones?
Listen, we're the only species that pays to
live on Earth. I saw that meme today.
Yeah, this is just us. We had to complicate it somehow.
Yeah. We don't have to eat toxic food or be unhealthy or sick, and you don't have to use so many pharmaceutical drugs, right? You can actually use some natural medicines that will help you heal and support yourself and your family.
Yeah, I think for so long we've been in this space of divide and conquer.
Yeah,
and that actually doesn't work. If you look at like anything in the natural world, it's not divide and conquer. It's come together and conquer. Like, think of an anthill.
Right.
It's never their ant. Like, it's always a collective. Sing along. Sing along.
Come together.
Right now. Aging yourself.
I see that thing is thangin', ain't it?
Really working.
It was very good.
Yeah, so I think it's time for us to like, stop the division. It sounds so corny, but like, it's true. It's, we're all humans. We've like bought into a lot of systems that tell us what color we are, what our sexuality means. Even this idea of masculine and feminine being polarities, like I don't see them as polarities, right? I think the whole point of this conversation is that really we all encapsulate it all.
Yeah.
Right?
We're all on the spectrum.
We're all on the spectrum. And so like in the spectrum of energies, right? And so for a very long time in my life, people would have read me as more masculine because I was assertive and I was opinionated and all these things that aren't actually reserved for men, right?
Men or masculinity, because they're definitely
that is not reserved
for
masculinity, right? Yeah. But also in our understanding in this world, like there is still, I would say, a binary understanding. It's certainly changing.
Definitely, it's very cis hetero binary syndrome, for sure.
Yeah. And so even within that, right, like in this conversation to masculine and feminine, and then like the intersection of non-binary gender, like where does that even work, right? They're not necessarily polarities. They are one in the same, and it's about being comfortable accessing those different parts and recesses of yourself. So
True.
yeah, and I think in ceremony space and in an
ceremony says the awareness. That would be kind of the divine feminine.
The awareness.
Right. And then the divine masculine would be the integration.
Okay.
I mean, whatever, right?
Yeah. I mean, awareness and integration.
That's cool.
Expansion and liberation. I mean, now we're just we're splitting the hairs, but yeah, I mean, ultimately there are no others, right? It's just different fractals of the same reflection of that oneness that we all encompass, right? We are the universe experiencing itself in 3D form. And so to a certain extent, we must clash so we can heal, because we intentionally desensitize because it's scary or it's uncomfortable. But at our core, we are yearning for the connection that comes from that. And that harmony is that interplay after the clash happens, right? When the sea hits the shoreline, the erosion, but also the withstanding of the ocean's currents. And it's that interplay.
Give and take, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The inhale, exhale, and then the pause.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. It's like it's a constant, we're in a constant process of death and transformation.
Yeah, for sure.
But you have to be open to that, right? Like you have to be open to the idea that you are not a stagnant being, that you're incredibly dynamic, and that you can completely change and transform and shift who you are to get back to your true self.
Yeah. And we all have an internal healer. We really all do.
Yeah.
You know, we're finding out like all these treatments like MDMA and psilocybin, assisted therapy, you know, the therapy that they're using is really, it's a hands-off approach. It's really it's not this DDSM labeling, but it's more about the person connected with their inner healer, their inner wisdom, the name that they chose before their parents were born. We have superpowers, and we're not using them. You know,
and that's the difference between teaching and remembering, right? Like we came with these downloaded already. We are conditioned to forget.
Yeah.
And so also, all things are done in remembrance of we, right?
Yeah, true. And also, can we just, humans who are listening to this conversation, I feel like the when a human says the word human these days, there's like a negative connotation. Like, oh, humans, we do this, we do that. We, you know, this conversation, this energy around we're bad. We're bad for the planet. We're bad for this and that, the other. But 70,000 years ago, we were naked and afraid, and half of the species here were eating us. You know, that was our life and experience. Right now, you know, it's not your dangers from other humans, not other animals. But also we're living during a so-called pandemic, right? And we're having this good conversation, wearing these beautiful clothes, lights on. When where I'm at right now, the sun's about to go down, and that means I would have been bear and wolf food, you know, just 300 years ago, or not 300, maybe like, you know, 2,000 years ago, 70,000 years ago. Yeah, let's put it there. So I love you guys. We're working to improve that. It's relative. What I'm saying is, in your present moment, the shit is kind of fucked up. It's always but it's less fucked up now.
It is.
You know, look, when I was born, 30% of the world's population had the potential of starving to death that night.
And over 50% did not have indoor plumbing.
Yeah. So we're getting there.
I love perspective like that.
It's a little bit.
I love that perspective. So while we close out, because we get to that time. So this, once again, we say this like almost every episode, but there has to be a part 2 to this. Because we're only just beginning to scratch the surface.
Please.
I'm in.
We love you, brother.
Yeah, we love you too. Listen, man, like that lodge pretty much consolidated it. We got to go make some magic out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we'll be up your way in August to do ceremony. We come up to Brooklyn and do ceremony every other month. So,
Well, you know, August is a beautiful month to do anything, so you will be well
a
received.
little combo.
You know,
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
and it's right around Oshun Festival. I'm gonna be lit. It's gonna be.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So with that being said, how can people follow you? How can they keep abreast of y'all's movements? How can people support you?
Ooh, good questions. So you can find us online at theancestorproject.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Ancestor Project. And you can support us by coming and doing some learning with us. We just wrapped up our psychedelic emancipation course, all about the forgotten history of psychedelics in Africa. You can get all those recordings. You could get yourself a little self-guided ceremony. So yeah, come learn with us. Come sit in ceremony with us. It's always an honor to be with our medicine family.
Man, let's learn our medicine ways, man. Let's learn our ways so we can liberate ourselves like right now.
I don't know how to drop in the chat, but if you go to the Ancestor Project /ceremony, you'll find all of our group ceremonies there. And Brooklyn is definitely listed. We'll be in Brooklyn on Sunday, August 8th next. And we have a few spots left for that ceremony still.
We love you, and thank you, ancestors, for allowing us to be in this space. Actually,
yeah, this is a beautiful conversation.
All the people who came before to make this, like, all this technology is kind of dope. You know.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is dope. We might have to hit y'all up and be like, so how do we do this?
And these beautiful, look at these beautiful people that you guys get to look at, just dropping signs. I mean, y'all were just like I mean, your brains are just amazing and delicious. The two of you.
Amazing and delicious. That sounds almost zombie-like. My bad. Hold on.
Yeah. No, Hannibal Lecter. That's, you know, good friend of mine.
Hannibal, listen, you know, we're gonna get there. But it's been thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and put y'all back into our awesome green room with the 5-star accommodations and the butlers and the private jet. I'll look back to you once we close out this transmission. So sit tight, please don't go anywhere, because we got to figure out how we're gonna make this a part 2 situation. And everybody, listen, the myths, the legends, the enigmas. Charlotte James and Undrea Wright of the Ancestor Project.
Dre. Just call me Dre. You killing
Dre? All right.
He's like, you keep telling my government name.
Okay, listen, you could have let me know that. It just said Dre Day in that yellow banner. But listen, double salute.
We love you
from the bottom of all of our hearts here in the little DMA community. You are loved and you're always welcome on our platform. So, with that being said, catch y'all in about a few minutes. Don't go nowhere.
Okay.
All right. Man, that was so nutritious. I feel better about it. And yes, Sequoia, that was big Lego energy, because like August is the best month in the year. I don't necessarily know that we deserve it. However, the universe loves us so much that it allows us to experience it anyways, right? But as you know, how we do right around this time, we got more dogs to walk as we close out. So, resource recap. The Ancestor Project, you can check them out at www.theancestorproject.com. It is right there. Feel free to check them out. You can also catch Dre and Charlotte and their work on IG. And the handle is at the Ancestor Project. Everything is updated. Whatever's on the website is on the social media page. You can catch them there. Trust me, it's worth a follow. Go ahead and make that move. For our page, you can catch more DMA action on the Mastermind Connect IG page. You can also catch us on the Mastermind Connect YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/Mastermind Connect. The link is in my bio. The link is in Mastermind Connect's bio, also on IG. And if you're on the Book of Faces, because, you know, we're old, it is the Divine Masculine Activated by Mastermind Connect group. If you're not in there, you're missing out on a lot of easily accessible updates, because that's where we post a lot of stuff. That was a lot of words. Let me take a breath. Before I close out, it is imperative that I do our standard gratitude, attitude, and latitude because rituals. So, starting off with our gratitudes, we're going to slide to this banner. I love having these buttons. I feel like Zordon or something. I don't know. So, our highest gratitude to Charlotte and Dre for blessing us with their wisdom and insights. Seriously, hella bars on that. It's going to be so much time having to edit after the clips because we're going to have like a good hour worth of postable content. So thank you in advance. Our attitude. Compassion is the antidote to judgment. The sooner you give it to yourself, the easier it will be to hand it off to others. And our latitude. Don't eat a mushroom stem and see colors. Eat the whole bag and see God. With the caveat, everybody don't need to eat the whole bag. Some people only need 10 to 15 grams. However, for those of us who are intrepid enough to go for it, go for it. Just make sure you do it under counsel. And with that being said, this concludes this season of Divine Masculine Activated. I don't know about you, but it has been quite a ride. I can't wait till we drop B-roll on everything that happened behind the scenes that leads up to these transmissions getting to y'all. I'm looking forward to a season 3. I'm sure with the world opening back up, it's about to get way jiggier than it has been. And I won't hold up any much more of your time because we're already 6 minutes over. So on behalf of myself and Courtney, abundant love, abundant gratitude, abundant appreciation. And let me check on these last little more comments. There we go. Boom. Thank you. Without the accountability of this, we may not have stayed so obedient to the assignment of making sure that this wisdom got out, and who knows who this will touch. So continue to initiate yourselves daily. Continue to be compassionate. Continue to show gratitude. And until the next time, we'll catch y'all later.